Welcome to this part where I'm going to show you how to add a new page. Now, to add a new page to your website, just like I mentioned earlier, come to pages. When you hover over your pages, you will see add all pages, add new page. Click on add new page. So we're going to name this page test page. Now, basically, you name your page in accordance to the purpose you're using it and how you would remember. This page is for a test purpose. So let's call this test page for training. Then I'm going to come here and click publish. So I click the publish twice and it shows page published. Now I'm going to come up here and click to edit with Elementor. So I basically have to minimize my screen to be able to close this because of screen size. So just in case you have that challenge, you can minimize with your two fingers, close that, and reset your screen to normal size. So basically, Elementor is a page builder. In WordPress, we have different page builders, and Elementor is one of the page builders and the most popular page builder. So Elementor actually has a lot of plugins, extensions that makes it more user-friendly and more customizable. So we'll be building our pages with Elementor. I'm going to walk you through how to build and design this page with Elementor. So let's use this class to cover up all the basics of Elementor. Now, this is an interface of a page, and as you can see, the page is blank. There's basically no content on this page. Everything here is blank. Now, on the left of your screen, you will see a ribbon. You see a panel here, and on the top, you will see elements, and you're seeing global. Now, when anything you edit on the global will affect the entire website, while these elements are for you to add content to this specific page. So if you go to global, right, say save your first global widget. Those whatever you do on the global affects the entire website, but the elements are for you to work on this page. Now, if you look at the top of the screen, there are two buttons here, a toggle button. If you click, it says site settings, theme builder, user interface, add-ons, finder. You don't need those things to build this page. You may need this, you need this because this is a menu that helps you, like if you basically click here, you'll be able to access all of these elements. So these are called elements: container, heading, image, text editor. All these are Elementor elements. These elements allow you to add different or to be able to build your website. So when you add a section, you can then add elements to that section, which is how you are able to build a website. And we're going to walk through that one after the other. We're going to add 2 to 3 sections, and we're going to add different elements to each of the sections, and then we're going to see how that turns out to form a beautiful page. This same building guide will be able to guide you, is what you would use also to build your sales funnel, because the sales funnels are also designed using the Elementor page builder. So the page builder is basically like what we will call, let's assume, is a text editor, a code editor that allows you to design, or a designer interface that allows you to build, customize, and design your web pages. So with that said, let's add our first section. So if you come here, you see add new container, you click on it, and then these changes, Elementor made these updates about last year. Before now, Elementor was using different kind of blocks, but let's just understand this, that currently Elementor uses what we call containers. So just in case you come across different blocks, we are working with containers. You can choose to add a container that flows down. If you see the arrow points down, meaning that any element you add into this container will be pointing down. I'm going to explain that to you. You will see how that works as we design. If you look at the arrow on this container here, it points right. Why this is a container with two sections, or a section with two containers of equal size, and a section with two containers where one is bigger than the other. And this is a section that has four containers. This has three containers. You can see the design, right? So if you add any of this section, it will inherit this pattern by default. But let's just add a simple container that has the text flowing down, and you will see how that applies as we design our pages. So you see this container has been added. You can basically call this a section, because if I choose to add another container, it also forms a different section. Like if you see here, there is a section, and there is also here another section. There is a section here, and there is another section. And I can add elements to this section, this container, and I can also add more elements to this section, this container. I can equally add a container inside this container. In essence, I can also add a container inside a container. That is, I can put in a container as an element. A container equally is an element which I can also add into this section. So if you see, it's just basically a section is a building block, and this is another building block, like saying a row and another row, which allows me to add elements into this and another element into this. Okay, so with that said and done, let me quickly I will add an heading to this section and a text editor, and I will equally add a background image and a color overlay quickly to this, which will quickly create an heading block, which we can actually call a hero section. So let's come back here to the menu. As you noticed here, let me quickly explain this, right? When you had a section like this or a container like this, you have what we call a layout. We have the style and we have the advanced. For every element you add to your text editor, you will equally see this: layout, style, advanced. Like as I click this guy, I see layout, style, advanced. Whatever layout, whatever I add to these layouts, whatever inputs I make here, whatever style and customization I make here, whatever advanced styles and settings I add here, affect this guy, because this guy is the block that is highlighted. Now, if I highlight this guy, also whatever changes, whatever I add to this layout, whatever style I had here, whatever advanced setting I had here, is added to this guy, because this guy is the one that is highlighted. So if I highlight this guy and I come to layout, whatever I had here affects just this guy. For instance, let me make this guy it's stretch it to 1000. Let me leave it at 1000. Okay, let me stretch it to full. Let me change it from box to full width. You may not notice any changes for now, but you will understand as we progress. Let's come to style, and let's add a background color. Let's add a background color, and let's make the background color, let's make it red. So you see that color that I've added now is noticeable, right? So you can see that the color of this container changes to red. So now let's add elements inside this section, this container. So you come to this menu. Okay, something just happened. If you notice, the color changed to white. That means the color on the style is it's like a kind of a malfunction, but it's okay. Just go back here, edit this to red, click out, ensure it clicks out properly. That color is still changing on the background on its own. So just in case you experience that, don't panic. Just click to ensure that that element is not acting up on the background. So that's fine. That's working fine. So that was done just fine. So come here to elements. On the element, click to add an heading. You can drag this heading and drop here. Let's make this heading center align. Now, if you look at here, as we add these elements, right? You notice something, right? The element also have its own what we call content, style, and advance. Container, if you notice on the container has what we call layout, style, advance. Why the heading as an element and as another element has what we call content. Content because you can add text. This text is a content, right? So what do you want to write on your heading? You can call this, let's say, my first heading. My first heading. Now let's style this heading. Let's style it. Let's add styles, design. How do you want this my first heading to look like? Beautify it, customize it. Where do you want it to position? So let's come to style and then let's click to center align it. Click to center align. So my first heading is center align, or you can make it right align, or you can justify it, right? So let's make this center align. So I want my first heading to be center aligned. Okay. I want the text color of my first heading to be, instead of being black, let's make it white. Okay. I'm just showing you how the elements work, not necessarily about beauty, but just so you can understand how styles affect how each element can be customized and used to create a website, a beautiful design, right? So let's come to the typography. Typography is that how do I want the text to look, both the size, the weight of the text. So for size, I would make this 70. So for the family, we have fonts here. Now here you can change the font to any font of your choice, and you can see Google fonts are loaded by default. So if you come to, let's use Adamina, you can change to any font, Actor. You can change to any font you want, depending on how you want to style your website. Let's change this weight back to 800. If you see the change, the weight becomes heavy. 200 will be lighter. 800 is thick, kind of more bold. So the weight is basically to set how bold you want your font to look. So you can set your line height, your letter spacing, your word spacing, and all of that. You can style each of your elements how you want. So while we are doing all of this, if you notice that for every style we had here, there is an icon showing here, which is more like what you call desktop. So every of this style that we had here affects the desktop view. Every of the style we had to this element on desktop view. So we're going to design all of this on desktop view first, and then we're going to switch over here to a mobile view, or we're going to switch to a tablet view and customize this whole website too. That way you can see, you can choose how responsive you want your website content to look on mobile, on tablet, and on desktop. It's not something you rush, something you take your time, you do your designs one after the other, and then you see the beauty comes out, and then you like what you've done. So now, since we've added heading as our first element, let's add a text block. what we'll call a description below this guy. So let's go back to these elements here. You click on the elements, and then you see you have different elements here. Basic elements. We have under the basic elements, we have heading, image, text editor, video. So we can come here then and add text editor, right? So we've added a text editor, and then let's also come here to style. So if you as we added the text editor, you notice also it has its own content, it has its own style, and it also have its own advanced. So whatever style you add here is added to this editor. So every element, like I mentioned, has its own content, style, advanced. So for these elements that we've added now in the text editor, we're going to make this center aligned, right? We've made it center aligned, and then let's come down and also add a video below this heading. So we're going to go to content, and then we're going to go to elements. Elements, we can choose to add image below here, video below here, heading, or any element of your choice, button, divider, spacer, Google Maps, icon. There are lots of elements here. As you keep designing, you will understand each element and how you can use it based on your interest. But we are still working with the basic element, so let's basically just add a video below this guy. Let's add a video here. So here we have my first heading, we have the text block, and we have the video block, or call it my heading as an element. This is the heading element. The text editor, call it paragraph. This is what you call a paragraph text. And then we have here, we call the video block. So we actually have a layout. We have a section, a container that contains heading, description, and video. So now let's customize this design. It's looking too big for our screen. To minimize this screen, you can click on this toggle button. It will minimize this section, and then you will view this on full screen. So if you look at this, we've actually added content, but it's not looking beautiful. It is not looking beautiful as you would like it to be. So what then do we do? Let's come back here and customize. Instead of making this red, this background red, I would rather make it black. So let's go to this edit container, go back to style, click on container right, go back to style, and then let's change the background color and make it black. So after clicking on the section, that's the container, this place, click here. If you click on this tab, you'll be closing it. You would have deleted this. So don't click on this cancel to delete it. This plus will add another section. We don't want to do that. So you click on this center here, edit container, and then come to the classic, and then add color. Okay, let me quickly explain something here too. We have, when you're, like we noticed earlier, we have here the background and we have the background overlay. And you would wonder why I did not add the color. I added the color on the background overlay. I want us to add this color on the background, not as an overlay. So let's clear this guy. Let's clear this color here. Come to clear this color. Let's add it as a background color, not as an overlay. You can add color as a background overlay or as a background, and they are quite different, and you will see how that applies in each case. We have background, we have background overlay, and we have the border, we have the shape divider. So for this container, which is an element, for the style, you can style the background of this container. Let me explain that. You can style the background of this container by adding image to the background, color to the background. Now, below the background, you can add an overlay, another layer of a background within the background, or the border of this container. If you want to add border color, you want to add Whatever you want to add to the border, you can do that equally. So let's go again here to background. Let's go to this background type. We have classic. You can add classic color, a single color. You can add gradient color. You can add video to the background, and you can add slideshow to the background. Any of that, you can make the background to be a slide. So you can equally do that. So what we want to add to this background is a simple color. So let's add a simple color. Let's add a simple color. Let's make this background black. Okay, so which means the background is black. Now let's come to overlay and add image to the overlay of this background. Let's come to background overlay and add choose image to the overlay. I'll pick a random picture from my media library, and if you have a custom design you want to add, a customized image you want to add to your overlay, is up to you. Let's use this image. Let's select. Now you see it has image resolution full. Then we have image repeat. I don't want this image. You can then customize how the image appear on the background. Position, attachment, repeat. I don't want this to I want this to just be no repeat. So the image is quite small. That's why it's showing this way. Let's change that image. Let's choose another image. Just pick a random image. This is just for training purpose. Let's take this image. The size is quite big enough, 750 by 1095. So basically, I've added an image to the background. You can actually increase the resolution of the image or the opacity of the image, or reduce the opacity, how you want it to appear. So this is just to show you that you can set a background image, add opacity, and reduce opacity, like you see here. Now, basically, this is not looking so cool. So let's delete this image. Let's just delete it. But you can see that you can actually add a background overlay. You can actually add a color as an overlay. You can choose to add color as an overlay. But let's quickly just make this whole place look beautiful enough. What I can easily do here is reduce the width of this image, of this video, the video block. The video block is too big. So let's click on the video block. You see content, style, advanced. Under content, you can add a YouTube video link and it will play that video from YouTube. Or you can upload a Vimeo video link, a Dailymotion video link, a video press, or a self-hosted video, which means you can upload, if you click self-hosted, you can upload your own video to your own website. But I don't advise it because it will slow down your website. So don't often use self-hosted video. Instead, use a YouTube video link because YouTube is optimized for video. So you can paste any video link from YouTube here and it will load that video in this iframe, in this block, in this element. So what you now do is that to reduce the width of this video, you go to advanced. Under advanced, you can add padding or margin. But the easiest thing you can do is to come to width. Come to width and custom width. Add a custom width and then drag the size to, let's say, 50%. And then you can align this video. So you see the video automatically aligns to center. The width is reduced. You can use pixel or percent. I often use pixel and I often use percent. Now for the percent, it will set this width to, like this, I set this to 50%. So 50% means this video will load in this section on 50% of the, like the measurement, the size here is 50%. So if you look at the space from here to here and here, it's also about 50% too. So this is 50% and this is just perfect for the test purpose. So let's also load this video, this text block to load. So let's reduce the width of this text block also. So we come here to advanced. After clicking it, and we can also set this to custom, and then let's also set this to 50. And then we click to center align it to. So it center aligns within this section. That this center here is to center it within this section so that it is in the middle. All the elements are in the middle of this section. Remember, the alignment is for the text. The one we have the text alignment, which is this under style, center alignment for text, and then the center, and then this center here, this very center here is for this element as a whole to be in the center of this section. Now, if you look at this block here, the content is too close to the top and the bottom. So which means we want to add a spacing at the top here and at the bottom. We want to have space at the top of this element between from the block up here to here. We want to have space, and we also want to have space between this guy down here. So what do? We click on this section again. After clicking here, we go to style. No, we go to layout. We go to layout, and on the layout, two things we can do here. We can add space from using the layout. We can do two things. We can use two ways, either by setting the minimum height of this section. The minimum height of this section. Either by setting the minimum height of this section or by adding a margin or padding to this guy. Let me explain with using this new block that I've not done anything. Okay. Now, if we click on this block, because if we add it, you may not really notice the difference because we've added elements to this section, so it may not be very glaring. So if you click on this block, let's click this block. Let's click this section. Click it. Come to style and add a background color. Let's add a background color. Let's make the background color blue. Let's just use a predefined color blue. Let's go to layout. And on the layout, let's make the minimum height to be 450 pixel. Is on pixel. We notice it's on pixel. So if we make this pixel, let's say we had 100. Let's say we make 450 pixel. You see the height has changed. So the minimum height of this document is 450. Whether we add elements to it or we don't add elements to it, the minimum height is 450 pixel. So you can choose to make this, you can increase the minimum height to say 1000. So you see, whether you add elements to it or not, the minimum height has changed to 1000. So what if you make it 10,000? Of course, you don't want to do that. You can see you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. The minimum height is 10,000. What do you need that for? Of course, you don't need that. You don't need to. Well, it depends on your design, of course, just based on what you want to do. But just for show purpose, you're seeing that you can set a minimum height, and that will drastically change how tall this section is. Let's delete it. So by default, it just sets itself to something that is sizable and inherits elements. So if you look at this section here, we haven't added a minimum height. But this height, because of the elements that we've added inside it, it is already looking tall. So you can actually choose to add a minimum height that will allow space to allow this section to have space at the top and at the bottom. So let's say we had a minimum height of about 600. So 600 now had a little space, but it's not tall enough. Let's make this 750. Let's make this 750. So if you notice here, because we've added 750 as a minimum height of this section, as the minimum height of this section, this block, this old document has changed to, has created a space at the bottom, right? You now see that there's a space at the bottom, but the elements is still touching up, which is still not very beautiful design. So we can click on the section again and set all the elements in this section to be in the center. We can align all the elements in this section. Now remember that these settings that we are adding is to this guy. So we can tell this man, let every element inside you be at the center, in your center. So we click it and we come here to justify content within this section. So we can have justify to start, which is the top there, center, end. You can see that it goes to the end. Space between, all the elements space equally between, space around. You may not notice the difference because, okay, space around, and space evenly. All the elements space evenly. That's not a beautiful design. So let's basically just use all the elements to be at the center. So if you notice here, there is a space at the top, there is heading, there is the description, there is the video, and there is a space at the bottom, which is not a bad design. This is just one way to customize this section. There are many other ways we can choose to customize this section. Now, let's change the color of this description text to white. So we click this here, and as you click it, you remember what I said earlier, you always have content, style, and advanced. Now for the content, we are not touching content, we just want to change the color. Let's go back to style, and let's make the text color white. So we make this text color white. So we have a much better design, okay? Having a much better design. So you see we have heading, we have the video, the description, and we have a video block, all added inside this section. All added inside this one section. So what if we want to increase, this is just, you can customize this at will as you want, based on how you want your design. Just explaining so you can understand how each element works, how you can add padding to this text. Like you can fully customize this guy. You can customize this guy where you want it to position. Do you basically want this guy to position at the start? Can left align this, and we can then come here and right align this. We can say, let's right align this description. So you see it aligns to the right. Okay, it's aligned to the right, but because we've aligned this text to the right, the position of the element is still in the center because of all the elements, because this element here is 50% and is at the middle. Is 50%. What if we make this 100%? You notice what has happened. It goes to the side. So what if we leave it back at 50? And then we say go to end. You see the difference? So what if we say go to start? So the content here is still left aligned, but it's at the start. So you just see that you can choose to design, position your content, your element as you want, but be design centric. So basically just use a simple flow. Let this whole element still be center aligned, and let the text inside also be center aligned. Go to style and center align all the text. And let this guy also still be center aligned. Even though this guy is full width, this guy here, if you notice, is still 100%. He's still on a 100% width. But because the text here is not much, the content is not much, the content is not out of width, you can just leave it to center align. So assuming you have more content, and let's say you have lots of content here, like let's copy this content and Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z, space, paste, paste, and paste. So you notice here that the whole heading is still 100%, but it's now looking too large for our screen. So you can then say, okay, I don't want it to spread this long. I don't want this it to have this long width. I want to change the width. So you can still select here, come to advanced, and then change the default width. The default width to, let's say, instead of default to 50%. So now since you've changed it to 50%, you notice that it is not short, but then it is not in the center. So we can then go to back and click it to center. Of course, it's not a beautiful design, and we don't even need all of those contents. So let's just delete this whole thing that we added here. My first heading. Let's delete it. And it looks like the same thing. So if you notice that it's looking like before, but yes, we've added some more styling to it, which were not there initially. But it is still at the center because it still fits into the what we had before. The content is not much. So depending on the content, the width of your content, the length of your content, you may choose to change your styling, your design as you want. But at the end of the day, you just want to have a simple looking, beautiful design. So basically, I want to believe I've been able to explain how each element functions, how you can easily style any element you had to your website. So let's add an image block. Let's add image block. Let's add an image block to this. You can actually add more elements to this section. You can still go back to, let's go to elements here. You can still add many elements to this block. You can choose to add a button below this guy. Let's add a button below this description. Okay? And then I want to center align this button. Now, since we've added a button, there is what we call, remember, like I said earlier, for every content you add, every element you add, you can add content. So if we go to content here, what is the content of a button? Of course, you want to add a link. So you can then add a link, a button link here, a button link to this element. So you click the button, and you can add a link to your button, because the content of a link of a button is a link. Because the content of a button is a link, and also the label of the button. So if you don't want to hard click here, you can click. Let's say you want to link this to a product, you can say proceed to order, to check to order. So you can link this to a form or go to form, whatever, depending on what content you're adding and where you want to redirect this button to. So you add the link. It can be an internal link, that's a link on your website, or an external URL, a link to another website, whatever it is. Or you can add this. You can actually link this to a section using the pound sign, and I'm going to show you later on in the video how to link this button to a section, so that when they click a button like this, it takes them straight to that section. So basically, let's just leave this at this for now. Let's leave what we've done so far at that. So basically, this is how you can add an image to this button. And then that's it. Let me show you. Let's move on. Now, if you come to the bottom here, to the bottom of this section of this ribbon, you see this ribbon, right? You're seeing here, you see settings, you see navigator, you see history, you see responsive mode, preview, and updates. If you click on this preview, it will load a preview of this web page. So let's click preview. So the preview basically loads a preview of everything that we've done so far. The preview loads a preview of everything we've done so far. So you can actually preview what you've been doing on. But this, we've not actually made this website mobile responsive, which means if we should preview this website on mobile mode, it will not be looking great. I can very much be sure of that. But let's go back to our website editor. We've not yet made this website mobile responsive. We've not yet made this mobile responsive. So how do we make this mobile responsive? How do we make what we've done so far mobile responsive? So you come here and you see responsive mode. So we click here, a ribbon appears at the top, and on this ribbon at the top you see tablet portrait, you see desktop, tablet portrait, and mobile. So we want to set this content on mobile and make it mobile responsive. So we click on the mobile. It loads a mobile view of our web page. And because we made this content 50% is not good enough on mobile. We want to leave this at 100%, the 100%, because we're using percentage, right? So we come to percentage and we raise this to 100%. So we come here and we say, let's make this also 100%. And then we come here and we make the video 100% also. Come here on the advanced. Remember that all these are the advanced. Remember, as I said, that when you click on any element, you will always have the content, whether on mobile. If you notice here now, the icon here has also changed to mobile, showing that whatever changes you're making here is for the mobile view. Remember, we have the content. If you change content is not specific to mobile or desktop. It is the style. It is the style and the advanced styling that is specific to mobile and desktop. It is the style and the advanced style that is specific to mobile and desktop or tablet. So we want to also make this 100%. So let's click. If you look at this heading, if we click this heading, right? If we come to style here, you will also see that you change the alignment has changed to mobile, showing that whatever editing we are editing here, let's change the typography size. If you change the family, it will affect everything, because if you notice there's no icon here showing whether it's mobile or desktop. But if you change the size, you can actually adjust the size on mobile while the size on desktop remains as it is. So let's use 40 here. Let's leave this at 40 pixel, 40 pixel, and with this text, we don't need that, it's still okay. So if you notice here that we're changing the style to mobile on mobile, not necessarily on desktop. So you can add style to mobile, advanced styling also to mobile or desktop for every single element, be it the container, be the container as an element, the text block, the description block, button, video, or even if a picture or whatever be the content you are adding to your website. Okay, so with that said, let's reduce the height of this page. Let's reduce the height of this block, of this section. Let's set the height on mobile to say 500. 500 is okay. Let's make it 520. So we can either increase the minimum height, or if we want to use margin, we can say let's use the minimum height to keep space at the top, or the best practice would be to add a padding. So let's come to advanced, select this section, which is this container, come to advanced, and then let's add padding. Now, if we add padding here, it will change padding on all sides, because this is selected, because the values are linked. The values are linked on the top, the right, the bottom. So let's deselect it. We've deselected it. We want to add padding to the top. Let's say 100 pixel. Then we want to add padding to the bottom, let's say 100 pixel or 50 at the bottom. Or let's even change the top padding also to 50. 50 is not bad. Let's do 80. So we say we've added padding to the top. We've added 50 pixel to the top and 80 pixel to the top and 50 pixel space to the bottom. Now, what is the difference between padding and margin? If you noticed here, padding adds space inside of this container. Padding adds space inside of this container, while margin will add space on the outside of this container. So if we add padding to this text block, for instance, this heading, you may not notice the difference, but let's say 100 pixel. We've linked that's then 100. We've added 100 pixel. If you notice, it had a spacing of 100 pixel on the first side of this block, of this heading, on the top, the bottom, the right, and the left. Now, what if we had padding? You may still not notice the difference. Let's do this 50. Let's leave this 50 so you can see something. Let's say 50, and let's add padding also 50. You don't notice the difference between the padding and the margin because of the heading is inside a container that has a black background, so you can't notice the difference. But just note that padding adds space inside of the element, while margin adds space outside of the element. And I will make you understand that now. I delete them, those I added. Click on this container. Let's add margin 100 pixel to this container. You see, a space has been added on the first side, and then it has changed that's distorted the dimension of this old thing that we're working on. Let's leave it at 10 pixel. Let's make it 20 pixel or 30 pixels so you can notice the difference. So if you noticed here, margin adds space on the outside of this container, of this block. Of course, you don't want to do that. Depending on your design, you may have need of that. So you notice here, margin adds what? Spacing on the outside, while padding adds space on the inside. We want to leave this back to 0. We don't need that. So we've added 50 pixel on the top for padding and 50 pixel on the bottom for padding. So what if we want to add, let's say we want to add okay, let's use this for the video background. Let's do something on the video. Let's click on the video. We've selected this video, right, as an element. Let's add a background color to the video block. Let this video entirely as an element have a background color. So we select the video. We go to advanced. This time not style, because we cannot add background video on the style. Like the video elements, the video content. Styling, remember, styling adds style to the content, while advanced adds style to the elements. So let's go to advanced and add a background color. Let's go to background on style. Let's go to background. And under background, let's add color. Let's say red. You not notice that the color has been added. You will not see the difference now, right? You've noticed we've added color, a red background color, but it is not visible because it is purely on the background of this video, and there is no space between the background and the element. So now let's come back to layout. Let's go to layout, click layout, and then on the layout, let's add a padding space. Let's add a padding on the video. Let's say 50 pixel. You see? Now 50 pixel puts makes you see the background of this element, because the element has a red color. This element has a red background color. We've just added a red background color to this element, and we've added a padding space of 50 pixel to this element, so you can actually see the background. So even though the video is still there, you can see the background of the video being the content of this element. You can see the background of this video block, and it has a red background color. Let's view that on desktop. Right, let's add this content. Let's do that on desktop. Let's add padding 100. Let's add padding 50 pixel, 50 pixel. So you now notice that the video background has a red background color, and of 50, and then it has a padding of 50 pixel. Now, if I should add a margin color to this background, you may not really notice it also, because by default, this section has a black color. So in order for you to notice the padding, the margin difference, let's go back again to, let's delete this first before we go to mobile view. Let's delete this, we don't need this. Let's go to desktop to mobile view. And on the mobile view, let's add a margin space, a margin to this background. Let's say 50 pixel. You see? So it shrinks the whole element. The video is still there, but it has a 50 pixel padding and a 50 pixel margin. You see how it shrinks this whole thing. So what if we remove the background color? Of course, you can remove the background color and the margin is still there. So let's remove the background color. Let's clear it. Clear. We've cleared the background color. The video is still there, but if you notice here, there is a 50 pixel padding and a 50 pixel margin. So it shrinks the video down. Unlike when we would have, say, let's just add the layout or possibly reduce the size, the width. It's already invisible. So we don't need all of this. I'm just explaining to you so you can understand how each of these functions. So let's leave this back to 0, and let's leave this back to 0. So that's on padding and margin. So you can add a margin and a padding to this whole element, this container, and that way automatically create space on the board, on the right and on the left for every element inside of the container. Or you can add margin and padding to each block or each element to create space either on the padding, a padding, or a margin space, depending on your design and what you want to achieve for your design. So just so you know that all that is doable. Okay, so what we're going to do now is to save everything we've done here. Let's save everything we've done, both on desktop, on mobile, want to go to tablet view. You can come with tablet view. But notice on tablet view, the design tool is not very nice on tablet. So we want to change the dimension. So you can come to tablet 2 and make the same adjustments just as you made these adjustments on the mobile view. So we want to change this to, let's use pixel. Let's leave this at pixel. You can use percentage. You can use pixel, like I said. So 500 pixel is good enough. Let's leave this to, you see, let's say 550. 550 pixel is okay. Let's leave this also at 550 pixel. And then let's leave the video also at 550 pixel. So we're using pixel on the tablet view, or we can also equally use percentage. So note the difference between percentage is that percentage will inherit depending on the device screen, while Pixel will just maintain a number pixel. Pixel is better on it for real, for perfect designing. For perfect designing, Pixel is better. Pixel is just the best. Pixel is just the best. But we are learning. You get to understand all of these and know how to apply each of these to perfection. So let's use 550 pixel. So 550 pixel, you can see our website now. What we've done on this section is now optimized both on mobile. If you come to mobile view, everything is looking okay. If you go to mobile view, everything is looking okay. If you go to tablet view, everything is looking okay. And if you go to desktop view, everything also is also just not, it's also looking fine, just cool. It's just cool. So that is basically how you had a text and heading, a description, or a text or paragraph text, a button, a video, and you can equally add other elements and style it as you want. You can add image to this section if you want to add. You can add image to that. You can equally add another section or another container inside of this container. So we go back here to elements. You can choose to add another container inside this container, and inside this container we can add images. We can equally add images inside of this container. So let's go to elements, and let's say we add heading here inside this container, and then go back to elements, add text editor, and then elements, add image. And then all of this is still inside of the first section we've added, right? And then we want to style. Let's delete this image. This first image we added. Okay. And then we want to reduce the width of this whole container without even touching any of the elements, width. We just want to set the width of this element to 500 or 800 pixel. Let's say 600 pixel. So you see, we've just set the width of this container to 600 pixel, and it automatically shrinks all the element that is inside here, and then they all look center aligned. So there are more ways and easier ways to get your job done. We just added this. So let's make this text color white or red. Style, red. Make this white. Style. Come here. Make this white. Let's choose an image. Go to image. Choose image. So from the media library, you can choose to upload an image, a picture, or select an existing picture in your media library. Any picture, depending on your design, what you want to do. So we just added this image to this, and then that's just good. Now, if you noticed here, we had one section. Inside this section, we have the heading, we have the paragraph, we have the button, we have a video element, and then we have another container inside of this section. And inside the container, we have heading, image, and description and paragraph and image. So what if we choose to add another container inside this container? You can still come back to elements, and add another container inside this container, right? And I've noticed now this container by default inherits has to align to the styling of this very container. So we can then choose to add image here, heading, go back to elements, image, let's add a description or a paragraph. elements, text editor, and let's add delete. So you see, we've added another section, another container inside this container, and inside that container we've added another text block, adding a paragraph and another image. Now, why am I making all of this small? Just for purpose of explanation. You can then choose to you can customize all of this whole thing as you would want and based on your design. So this whole section, the whole idea of this explanation is just so you have pure understanding of how each element works and how you can use it to customize your design to your test. Update. And let's preview on mobile. Let's view on mobile. See, everything just falls in easily. So oftentimes I recommend that it is easier for you to add space or margin space or padding space or container width to the container than to individual elements. So that when you are going on mobile, instead of adding space margin like the right alignment, the right space or left space to individual elements, add it to the container. It's quite easier and faster when you're going to mobile or tablet view. It just aligns itself easily than when you're adding all of those spaces to individual elements. So why not just add those elements, those tied into the container and move on. Okay, so I haven't said this, I haven't said all of this. Another thing I want to show you is how to change the flow of your elements inside a container. How to change the flow of elements inside a container. How to change the flow of elements inside a container. Now remember that you can easily click here to delete everything here that we've done. Let's click to delete everything we've done. Ctrl Z to undo. Ctrl Z to undo. Now, if I right select this document, this element, I can, you see, edit, heading, duplicate, heading, copy, paste, style, and all of this here. You can delete. Ctrl Z to undo. You can delete, right click. You can duplicate. Right click, duplicate. Right click, delete. Right click, delete. Right click, duplicate this. Right click, duplicate this. Now let's change the color of this heading to, let's change this color to gray. Let's go to style and let's go to text color. I will say F2, 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 F2. Let's make it quite conspicuous. Okay, let's use that color. Now, if you notice here, I've changed the color of this heading. So while this element is still white, this element has a touch of red. What if I want to copy? Okay, let me even change. Let's make it quite conspicuous, quite obvious. Let's change the font size also. Let's go to typography and change this to 115. Then let's right click on this, select this element. After selecting this element, you say copy, right click, copy. I've copied these elements. Now two things happen here. I've both copied these elements and the style of this element. So if I right click on this, let me click so anywhere, a space on this document, on this section, and then right click and say paste. It will paste this element. This element has been pasted somewhere. You will see here, you see inside here, the element has been pasted. But that is not what I want to do. I can then say, okay, instead of pasting the element, I want to paste this style. Let's say I customize this old style and I like to use this on other heading elements. I can come here, right click on this element and paste style. And automatically it copies all the style I added to this element to this other heading. So let's say if I have more headings like that in this document and I want to add the same styling to each of those elements, into each of those headings, I can do the same. And that also applies to this text block, to any other video. You can copy a style from one video to another video. But of course, this is not a good design. This is not what I want. Undo, Control Z to undo. I can use Control Z to undo. I can use Control Z to undo. Or for best practice, I can come to history. Look at the bottom of your screen. This ribbon here, you will see what we call history. On the history, I will locate where I first duplicated the heading and undo everything to that point. So I'll come here to heading. I will scroll down, look at pasted, removed. These were the actions I took. I added heading, duplicated heading. I duplicated heading, text duplicated heading, removed, heading added, text editor added, heading remove container, text editor, heading duplicate. This was where I duplicated heading. So let me just click to select back here. So it takes all my action down to when I duplicated this heading. Just want to go back to the first action I took. So automatically it reverts everything back to that point in time. Okay, we still have the text block edited, duplicated. I don't want that to. So basically you can use history to return to a particular point in time in your design progress. So you've been working on your design and then you want to go back to a particular point in time. You can just use history and then you go back to that point in time. But take note, if you've reloaded this page, it is likely to lose all of this history. But because we've not reloaded this page, all of this history is still intact. So what I want to do now is delete this guy, delete, and then I want to save by clicking update. So when you click update, you can choose to preview, and then you see everything we've done so far. So if you're designing a funnel, a sales funnel, you can use this way to add different elements to your page, and get a beautiful design of your choice. So now let's go back to this editor. Let's go back to our editor. What I want to do now is basically just duplicate this whole section just for speed. Let's just duplicate this section. Instead of adding new elements one after the other, let's duplicate this section. Now I've duplicated this section, right? We notice here from my first heading to where we'll have my first heading again, it's a different section. So a copy of what we have at the top, a complete copy of everything we have at the top, just for educational purpose. Of course, you can choose to add different elements of your choice depending on what you're working on. I want to change this background color so that we can notice the difference between which section we are working on. I want to change this section background color from black to, let's say, blue. Go to style, come to background type. Let's use background color. Let's use image. Let's go to image. No gradient. Let's just use a simple color. We are learning. You can do that on your own. So let's make it blue. Let's make primary color blue. Okay. So we have section 1, and then this is another section, a different container. Of course, you don't necessarily need to change the color of your containers. or you can possibly just use white and maybe gray or black, depending on what design you're using and how you want your design to look. But this is just for educational purpose. This is just for the purpose of explanation. So now I've changed this background color to blue. I haven't changed this background color to blue. I want to change the flow of all the elements inside this section. If you remember that when we started designing, go to layout, come to layout. Remember when we started designing our first block, we came to plus and we had the option to make all the direction, the elements, the elements in this column or in this section, in this container to flow down. So what if we want to make all the direction of the elements inside this column, this container, to flow to right? So just come here, select this container, come to layout, and then click on horizontal, right? Row horizontal, we select. So if you notice, everything we've designed just changed. So we now see that all the elements inside this follows a pattern, and the pattern is now flowing to the right. And because they are flowing to the right, the elements are too much, though it distorts this whole design. Now, not that this is a bad design in itself, but the elements are too much inside this container to flow right. So what then can we do? Let's do this. Let's delete this container. Let's delete this video. Let's delete this button. And then you can see that this is not a bad design in itself. Let's make these the container width, instead of 750, let's bring it down to, let's say, 450. So container width is 450. So this is another pattern of design. Here we have heading, paragraph, video, or we can say let's replace this video with picture. Let's delete this and let's add a text block, or we can just leave it like this. So you see there's a section, we have a stop section, and then we have another section here with a text block, or a text block heading and a paragraph text block. So basically, and then the contents or the elements in this block are flowing horizontally to the right. Remember, all the elements in this section here flows down vertically, while the elements in this container is flowing to horizontally. So depending on what you want to achieve, what if we delete this element? Let's delete this. Delete the heading, delete the text block. And we have a blank section. Let's reduce the width, the height to 0. Let's even remove it as default. So we have a default block with no elements. Let's close this. Basically, just close this guy. So we have a section here with no content. Now, because of the design I want to achieve, I want to have a design where there's an element here. I want to add 2 containers here. Let me add 2 containers to this block. Let me add 2 containers. Come here to Elements, click to add a container, and click to add, come back to Elements, add another container, and do. Remember that we just added a container, but the container went inside of the container we just added. I don't want to add the container inside this container. So let's just duplicate this. It's still noticing it. Let's duplicate the container inside. So basically, I've duplicated the container we added, the first container we added. So we have 2 containers. This is not visible enough. Let's change this background color back to black, or something that allows a darker shade of blue. Come to Style. Let's make this a darker shade of blue. close it. So we have basically we have a container here that the contents are flowing horizontally, and inside this container we have two containers. Inside this section or this column we have two containers flowing horizontally. Let's duplicate this again, and let's change the flow of elements inside this to vertical again. So you see we have two containers inside of these elements. They are flowing vertically down. So we can have here row reversed. So even if you may not notice the difference when you select this, let's say we select these guys to, let's say we select this guy to flow up. You may not notice the difference until you start adding elements, but then the flow is different. Or let's say this guy, we select this column and then we want come to layout, and we make the flow to be vertical but on the reverse. You may not notice the difference until you start adding elements, but we automatically change the flow of elements inside this. So remember that we have this column which we designed under all these elements, and the elements are flowing vertically down, right? While this we have a pointing down, and here we have another column where the elements are going from left to right. So basically, this is where you change the direction of the flows of elements inside the container. The direction. On that direction, you basically come to direction, and you can change the flow of elements within any container. You can change the flow of elements within any container. So with that said, let's update, and let's call this just enough for this section. We will still progress. I will explain more details to you, show you how to add more sections, how to add a form, and how to add more elements to make your design what you want. I want to believe I've quite explained enough. Okay. I want to believe I've quite explained this section long enough, and it should be clear enough. It should be clear enough. It should be clear enough. So what if you want to add a form? Want to add a form? So that should be all for now in adding elements and containers into your website page.